Good evening. We are coming on the air with breaking news tonight. President Biden has made a decision to pardon his son Hunter ahead of the transfer of power to President-elect Donald Trump.
Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today we're breaking down President Biden's controversial decision to pardon his son Hunter for federal felony charges and what exactly that means for the country. For the sake of clarity, we'll be referring to the younger Biden by his first name in this video.
Should we be surprised? Probably not. I mean, this is the way things are going now. The political norms in America are being eroded on a nearly weekly basis.
Who is Hunter Biden?
I know where I stand with my dad. I know where I stand with my family.
In short, Hunter Biden, born February 4th, 1970 in Wilmington, Delaware, is the second son of Joe Biden, the 46th president, and his first wife, Nelia Hunter Biden. Nelia, Hunter's mother, died in a 1972 car crash that also claimed the life of President Biden's one-year-old daughter, Naomi.
Everybody kind of thinks that that somehow, whether it's a compliment that we're like the Kennedys or whether it's a backhanded compliment like you're the Trumps, my dad has a job. But that does not mean that I had ever had any plans to go do rallies.
Graduating from Yale and earning his Juris Doctor in 1996, Hunter worked for the bank holding company MBNA, eventually serving in various capacities at the U.S. Department of Commerce and Amtrak. Both Hunter and his father have been falsely accused by several conservatives of working to prevent a corruption investigation into a Ukrainian gas company, of which Hunter was on the board.
My dad doesn't go after other people's kids. He just doesn't. Never has.
So you think it's perfectly fine? I mean, the Trump children have been criticized for doing similar sorts of business.
I don't look. Unlike them, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about them. I really don't. It's all noise, and what they do is they create just an enormous amount of noise.
President Biden and his son were subsequently found innocent of wrongdoing by two separate Republican investigations. What did Hunter do?
President Biden now is saying his son was selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Now, those are the same arguments Hunter's defense team made in court that were rejected by a judge or jury. And in the past, the president has talked about having faith in the justice system and so on. So why is the president saying this now?
Hunter has notably and publicly struggled with substance use disorder for drugs and alcohol for most of his adult life. After numerous stints in rehab, Hunter says he has not used those substances at all since 2019. However, his past came back to haunt him in June 2024, when he became the first child of a sitting U.S. president to be criminally convicted. He was found guilty of federal gun violations, with one of the charges stemming from his dishonesty about his drug use.
And Lindsey Graham and other Republicans have said the gun charge in particular is one that probably wouldn't be charged except that it was Hunter Biden. I mean, that charge is that when he was asked in applying for a gun to check a box as to whether he had a drug addiction, he said he didn't.
A few months later in September, Hunter was indicted on 3 felony charges related to tax evasion, as well as 6 misdemeanor charges. Hunter's sentencing in both cases was set for December 12th and December 16th, respectively. This did not end up being the case.
The breadth of that pardon suggests that President Biden understands that without that, Hunter Biden could be targeted for a vindictive prosecution. And you know, he faced jail time with these two convictions. And Donald Trump will be in charge of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So would be in charge of Hunter Biden's day-to-day life.
What is a presidential pardon?
The founders gave a president this almost unlimited power of pardon on federal offenses. And the whole idea was to base it on what the King of England did, one of the few cases in which we tried to emulate the king, where perhaps there had been a breakdown in the legal system, the king could make it up with mercy.
Let's take a step back for a moment to go over exactly how President Biden has given his son immunity. As outlined by the United States Constitution, it is within the president's power and jurisdiction to, quote, grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. President Biden has granted Hunter a, quote, full and unconditional pardon, meaning that any potential federal charges against the younger Biden, committed over a 10-year period from January 2014 to December 2024, will be expunged.
So they assume that presidents of the United States would be people who would use their judgment to remedy cases in which people had gotten a bad deal, there was a defect in the system, or, and preferably plus, a situation in which the person being pardoned would have a record of good conduct since his or her offense.
This includes any charges that may or may not have resulted from the aforementioned Ukrainian gas case. As noted by the BBC's James Fitzgerald, quote, "The pardon represents legal forgiveness, ends any further punishment, and restores rights such as being able to vote or run for public office."
Roger Clinton, the brother of President Clinton, was pardoned by him for drug convictions just before the end of his presidency. Very controversial. Charles Kushner, whom President-elect Trump is now nominated as ambassador to Paris, or is about to do so, was pardoned by him, although he was the father-in-law of his daughters.
Why is President Biden pardoning his son?
I think the argument is, listen, if there wasn't a bullseye on his back by virtue of him being Hunter Biden, that they wouldn't have sniffed out something like that to charge him with. But, you know, this was under the second part of it. It was under Joe Biden's Justice Department. At any point, the president had the constitutional power to call the process off.
In the wake of Hunter's federal cases, President Biden repeatedly denied that he would use his presidential powers to grant his son a pardon. In fact, as recently as November 7, 2024, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre stated unequivocally that the president would not pardon his son, saying, quote, "We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no."
If you look now where we are, what the President of the United States is saying is that essentially there are problems, there are political problems with the prosecutions that are being brought by his own Justice Department. And I think that's going to be a very, very tough pill for people to swallow on this issue.
So what changed? According to NBC News' Carol E. Lee and Sarah Fitzpatrick, not much at all. Sources close to the president told them that the elder Biden had considered pardoning Hunter since June, but decided that that would not be his publicly held position. Said President Biden in a statement, quote, "No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong."
He believes that Hunter Biden was being prosecuted for these crimes because he put the spotlight on the Biden family by running for president. He put the spotlight on his son.
How are people reacting?
Hunter Biden, obviously a very troubled man. He's had a difficult past. You can understand why a father would feel this way. But the fact is, this is exactly the kind of favoritism, two-tiered justice system that Trump complains of. Many Republicans have complained of, and it's a basis for worse to come, I think, in the Trump administration.
You may not be terribly shocked to learn that early reactions to Hunter Biden's pardon are far from overwhelmingly positive. In particular, legal experts have reacted with surprise and concern. Said Mark Osler, a law professor at the University of St. Thomas School of Law in Minneapolis, quote, "It's unusual enough to grant clemency on a case where there hasn't been a conviction yet, but it's rarer still to have the breadth of this one."
The power of the pardon is incredibly broad. That's why it's controversial. People have used it for political reasons. People have used it for very controversial decisions.
Even some on the president's side of the aisle were quick to denounce Biden's decision, like Colorado Governor Jared Polis, who stated that, quote, "This is a bad precedent that could be abused by later presidents and will sadly tarnish his reputation." Meanwhile, President-elect Donald Trump posed a question on Truth Social, asking, quote, "Does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the J6 hostages, who have now been imprisoned for years?" Trump had previously stated that he, quote, "wouldn't take pardoning Hunter off the books."
There's no evidence in the case of Hunter Biden, despite years of him having been investigated by the U.S. Attorney for Delaware, that there's anything improper. And in fact, the plea deal that Hunter Biden's attorneys negotiated with the Department of Justice came undone because the judge thought that the deal had not been thought through.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. What happens now? It's worth noting that Trump, just ahead of his first term's conclusion, issued sweeping pardons to several individuals in his personal and political circles, particularly people convicted of fraud. As such, legal experts are mulling over how Biden's unprecedented pardoning of his son could affect the president-elect's plans.
You can say it's selective prosecution, but no one is saying that Hunter Biden did not commit these crimes. And so what basically he's saying is he's echoing arguments that President Trump has made that the charges against Trump and Trump associates are politically motivated.
Per Trump's Truth Social post, he has claimed that he would offer clemency to those convicted of federal crimes as part of the January 6th Capitol riots. However, it's unclear as to what the president-elect is actually capable of doing, in addition to what he actually will do. Trump's sentencing in his New York hush money case, in which he became the first former president to be convicted for a crime, will be unaffected, as it is a state level and not a federal case.
What I would say is different about this, however, is that it's really sweeping. Even Trump's pardons were quite specific and targeted. This is like a blanket. It covers everything. And Hunter Biden really is going to be able to walk away from his father's presidency knowing that he's not going to be hunted by, a Trump prosecutor in the future.
What do you think of President Biden's decision to pardon his son Hunter? Be sure to let us know in the comments below.
President Trump likely will see or at least read about this interview. Anything you'd like him to hear from you?
No. I mean, really, no. It's really hard for me to say anything snarky right now or combative because I was raised to respect that office.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.